Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Surajit and welcome to my third part of the real-time chat application using Firebase and React.js. On our previous tutorial, we set up our Firebase project as well as installed our React.js library using npx command. Now it's time to dirty our hand by writing code inside our React project. So let's add some code to firebase.js file inside the source services directory so the app can talk with Firebase. So we will write import Firebase from Firebase. We will also import and initialize Firebase using the configuration details we copied earlier when registering the app in the Firebase dashboard. Then we will export the authentication and database modules. So at first we need to copy our configuration details from the text editor. Then we need to write const config, then an equal to sign, and after that we will use a curly brace, and inside the curly brace we will paste those configuration right here. Then after that we are going to start a new line, then Firebase dot, and it will suggest some autocompletion, that is initialize app. Then inside the parentheses we are going to use this configuration, and after that we are going to export const auth equal to firebase.auth, and in the next line we are going to export another, that is db equals firebase.database. Before creating our class-based or functional component, let me show you some good useful extensions you can install for VS Code. Auto close tag automatically add HTML or XML close tag, same as Visual Studio IDE or Sublime Text. Auto rename tag automatically rename paired HTML or XML tag, same as Visual Studio IDE does. Bracket pair colorizer 2. This extension allows matching brackets to be identified with our colors. The user can define which tokens to match and which colors to use. VS Code, ES7, React, Redux, React Native, JS snippets. This is the most important extension for our application development. This extension provides you JavaScript and React Redux snippets in ES7 with Babel plugin features for VS Code. Prettier formatter for Visual Studio Code. Prettifies an opinionated code formatter. It enforces a consistent style by parsing your code and reprinting it with its own rules that take the maximum line length into account, wrapping code when necessary. Now we wrote some code to integrate our Firebase configuration with React application. Now it's time to create 4 class-based components inside the pages directory. So at first create home.js file inside the pages directory, then type rcc and hit enter if VS Code shows you autocomplete suggestion, and if it doesn't, then press Ctrl then space bar key combination to call the autocomplete suggestion, and choose second option by pressing down arrow, or you can see from the autocomplete focus option, that is this one, and hit enter. Cool, you see it also placed home for our class name by using the file name. Now press tab key and the cursor will go inside the div tag. Now type h1 tag, and inside the h1 tag we are going to use hello from home. Let's keep it as it is, we will work on it later. Now let's copy this file 3 more times and rename those files as well as class name and its export name as chat, then sign up, and then login. Now we need to edit our app.js file inside the source directory. Select all the code by pressing Ctrl and A key combination and then delete all of them. Now let's import our dependencies in our source app.js file and then import React component from React, then import route, then browser router as router, then switch, from React router DOM, and we are going to import all of these pages components, that is home, chat, sign up, login, and after that we are going to import auth from the Firebase. So you can see these are ES6 imports. Specifically, we are importing React and other packages needed to build out the app. We are also importing all the pages for our application that we have created earlier. Our app has public routes accessible without authentication and a private route accessible only with authentication. Because React doesn't provide a way to check the authenticated state, we will create higher order components, and in short we can say it HOCs for both types of routes. Our HOCs will be wrap a route, pass props from the router to the route, render the component depending on the authenticated state, and redirect the user to a specific route if the condition is not met. Let's create a route.js file component inside the components directory. Here we will create two functional components inside the routes component. One is private route and another is public route. Then we will export them from the routes file. So write the code for our private route like this one. It receives three props: the component to render if the condition is true, the authenticated state, and the ES6 spread operator. To get the remaining parameters passed from the router, it checks if authenticated is true and renders the component passed, else it redirects to login page. Now write another function, that is public route. The public route is pretty much the same. It renders our public routes and redirects to the chat path if the authenticated state becomes true. Now we can import them inside our app.js file using import. Inside the curly brace we can say private route, comma, public route. From inside the quotation mark we can say dot slash components slash routes. Now we can use these HOCs in our render method. As you can see, we wrote loading inside the h2 tag, but you can use a React loading for this purpose to show a spinner is spinning middle of the page. Now it would be nice to show a loading indicator while we verify if the user is authenticated. Once the check is complete, we render the appropriate route that matches the URL. We have three public routes: home, login, and sign up, and a private one called chat. Let's write the logic to check if the user is indeed authenticated. Here we are setting the initial state of the app, then we are using the component.mount lifecycle hook to check if the user is authenticated. So let's add this after the constructor. Firebase provides an intuitive method called onAuthStateChanged that is triggered when the authenticated state changes. We use this to update our initial state. User is null if the user is not authenticated. If the user is true, we update authenticated to true, else we set it to false. We also set loading to false either way. Users will be able to register for chatting through email and password. The helpers folder contains a set of methods that we will use to handle some authentication logic. Inside this folder, let's create a new file called auth.js, and we need to add this. Import inside the curly brace, we are going to use auth from dot dot slash services slash Firebase. Now we need to import the auth module from the services we created earlier, and we need to write this code as I am writing here. We have two methods right here, that is sign up and sign in. Sign up will create a new user using their email and password. Sign in will log in an existing user created with email and password. Let's edit our sign up page now. The form and input fields are bound to a method we haven't created yet, so let's sort that out. Just before the render method, we need to use the constructor method. We are setting the initial state of the page. We are also binding the handle change and handle submit methods to the components this scope. Now we need to write this code right here. Next up, we will add the handle change method that our input fields are bound to. The method uses computed properties to dynamically determine the key and set the corresponding state variable. Now write handle submit async method. For handle submit, we are preventing the default behavior for form submission, which simply reloads the browser, among other things. We are also clearing up the error state variable, then using the signup method imported from the helper's auth to pass the email and password entered by the user. If the registration is successful, users get redirected to the chats route. This is possible with the combination of on-auth state changed and the HOCs we created earlier. If registration fails, we set the error variable which displays a message to the user. The login page is identical to the signup page. The only difference is we will be using sign-in method from the helpers we created earlier. That said, let's edit our login.js file inside our pages directory. Again, very similar to before, when the user successfully logs in, they are redirected to chat. So you can see we made this so far. In the next tutorial, we will integrate our app with Google and GitHub, service provider, and so on. Please subscribe my channel for the latest video updates. Feel free to comment for your feedback. Stay healthy and be updated. See you next time.